praise to the Most High Yah, our Heavenly Father, in the name of our Lord and Savior. Some of y'all say Jesus, some of y'all say Yahusha, some of y'all say Yahushua, right? All right, but I was on Instagram the other day, and I come across, one of Ron Dalton's posts, the producer of the film, The Hebrews to Negroes. And basically, this is the post I saw. And in the post, he basically, put a clip from Candace Owens, one of her shows that she had commented about Kyrie Irving. So, here's the post that I'm going to give it to you from off of her, show. But this is basically the clip that he had in his post.
The public was ready and that I was ready to sort of deliver this information. And so I want to jump right back into that discussion that we were having really about spiritualism. And I'm going to use not a current event, but a recent current event that happened a couple of years ago. You will remember this because I think it might have been the craziest moment from 2022. So Kyrie Irving, at the time, he still might be a basketball player for the Brooklyn Nets, tweeted a link to a documentary, absent commentary. He didn't tweet this and say, I agree with this. He didn't tweet this and say, I disagree with this. He just tweeted a link to a readily available documentary that was on Amazon, and he said nothing. And the next thing you knew, he was a mainstream story, and he was at risk of losing his job as a basketball player. And the title of the documentary was From Hebrews, to Negroes.
All right. So now, after watching that, I was thought to myself, I'm like, why is she bringing this up? That was 2 years ago. You know what I mean? So what was it? So I went back and watched her podcast, to see what this was. And as I was watching her podcast, I realized that, she was doing basically a part two to an episode before, right? So in order to try to get the context, because what she was saying was, was like, why are you being a little disrespectful here, But let me just show you the rest of the clip.
And if he had just tweeted it and the media didn't react with such insanity, probably no one would have watched it. I'm serious. It was a nothing thing, but they made such a big deal out of it that I remember watching the situation go down and going, okay, what is in this documentary that people are freaking out so much that the NBA has given him, you'll recall this, a list of 6 demands, a list of 6 action items that he must complete in order to return to the franchise, okay? Absurd. Do you remember this headline that was going on? This is what Kyrie Irving must do to get his life back for having tweeted out a link to a documentary that's available on Amazon. Not Jeff Bezos, but Kyrie Irving is at fault, not Jeff Bezos for making it readily available on Amazon. The first set of things that he had to do, the first thing he had to do was he had to issue an apology for posting a link to the movie, condemn the harmful and false content, and make it clear that he does not have anti-Jewish beliefs. Secondly, he had to complete the anti-hate causes that the Irving and the Nets and the ADL, I'm going to keep that topic, we're going to talk about more of the ADL today, agreed upon in their joint release, which included a $500,000 donation toward causes and organizations that work to eradicate hate and intolerance in communities. He was then told he had to complete sensitivity training created by the Nets. He was then told he had to complete anti-Semitic, anti-hate training designed by the Nets, and meet with representatives from the ADL as well as Jewish community leaders in Brooklyn. And the last one was after completing steps 1 through 5, he had to meet with the owner of the Nets, Joe Tsai, and lead franchise officials and demonstrate the lessons that he learned. Okay, so this was just like a whipping, a public whipping. It made entirely no sense. And I don't think he actually ended up doing any of that because then there was outrage and outcry, rightfully so, from the Black community going, what are you doing right now? What did he do that was so wrong? And of course, because of the way my brain works, when I see the media overreact, I just go, what's in this documentary? I mean, I think that's called the Streisand effect. Like when you go so crazy about something that people wouldn't have noticed. And it was, by the way, very poorly put together, which is why it made it even crazier. It seemed like a very budget film that was put together. It looks almost like a PowerPoint, to be honest. And I remember watching this going, how could this documentary have caused this much craziness in the media?
All right. So you see, again, you have another one of these blacks. that's what they like being called, crayons. But one of these blacks, they keep referring to us as blacks, and yet being disrespectful about who we are as a people. You know what I mean? The movie was poorly put together and all this type of nonsense. You know what I mean? So I looked and I'm like, I watched the video and I'm like, well, where did she even come up with this? Why was she doing this? So because it was making reference to the first video, I went back and watched the first video. Now, as you can see, she says that she, went and immediately watched the movie Hebrews to Negroes, right? But then she turns around and in this clip, when I watched the other podcast, at the end of the other podcast, she had brought up Kyrie Irving and she basically said she didn't watch it, right? Check it out.
This person says, I'm glad that you brought up the Frankists. You should look into the Khazars and the origin of the Ashkenazis. BTW, did you know the origin of the word Cabal comes from Kabbalah? Yes, I did. I figured that, by the way, as I was digging into this. And yes, there is a Israeli historian named Abraham Pollock. And there's actually a lot of historians prior to World War II who received awards for saying that the origins of, which is why it was stunning to me to see Kyrie Irving treated in the way that he was treated, 6 steps to get back to your life, because he shared a documentary which was theorizing that the original Jews, I actually didn't watch the end of the documentary, but then suddenly go, okay, well, what am I not supposed to see in this documentary? And I, of course, instantly watched it.
Theorizing that the original Jews, I actually didn't watch the end of the documentary, but then suddenly go, okay, well, what am I not supposed to see in this documentary? And I, of course, instantly watched it.
Theorizing that the original Jews, I actually didn't watch the end of the documentary, but the point was he was making that documentary suggested that the people that are inhabiting Israel today are not the biblical Jews. That was the point of why he got into trouble. I cannot tell you one way or another. I have not gone into any anthropological research, but what I can tell you is that prior to World War II, and you again can pivot to your browser right now and look up a man named Abraham Pollock, okay? Prior to World War II, he extensively wrote about, and the Israeli historians extensively wrote about the fact that they were the Khazars. They were like, yeah, here's the evidence, blah, blah, blah. He received awards from Tel Aviv University. And then suddenly after World War II, they said to him, like, this research was not helpful. And they just stopped printing his books. So I don't know. I literally can't tell you. And now if you ask someone about that, they'll say, oh, well, the science changed. Yes, we know. The science always changes. The research always changes. Very convenient. But that's what that person is referring to. I'm just letting you know when he says the Khazars.
So now, as you can see, she completely flip-flopped on what she said. Now, keep in mind, the video with her in the black, you know what I'm saying? She said, I didn't watch it. Well, that's the first video, right? Where she said, I didn't watch, this Hebrews to Negroes. But then with the video where she's got the cream color on, she says, you know what? I immediately watched it. So now it's like, oh, okay. Yeah, you on something. You flip-flopping now. You didn't come back and did a second video to clean up what was in the first video, right? Now, I have the video of Hebrews to Negroes, you know what I mean? Wake Up Black America right here, right? And, I'm going to read you from what it says on the back, right? It says, the movie Hebrews to Negroes, Wake Up Black America, produced and directed by Ronald Dalton Jr., uncovers the true identity of the children of Israel by providing the true ethnicity. Now, notice the word that he used, ethnicity. He didn't say the color. He said the ethnicity of Abraham, Ishmael, Isaac, Jacob, the sons of Ham, the sons of Shem, and the sons of Japheth. Find out what Islam, Judaism, and Christianity have covered up for centuries in regards to the true biblical identity of the so-called Negro in this movie, with tons of endless research and compelling evidence, right? This is the video that she's basically trashing, oh, it's poorly produced and all this type of stuff. So I went back and I started watching the first video, and then, she said some things, but now remember, she said about the Khazars that these people, Jewish writers were saying that these people were not the real Israelites, that they were Khazars, right? And so now she gets into the second video and she starts breaking down about, this is why she pulled in the Kyrie Irving, because I think she was trying to clean up what she had said in the first video. But in the first video, she was talking about how, these Jewish people who had converted to this satanic cult, Frankism, you know what I mean? How this is what the elites really worship. She was talking about how some of the Jewish people were Satanists, right? And they infiltrated all religions. So let me let you see this clip.
Now let's talk about the Jews. And I'm doing this, I'm doing asterisks. I'm not asterisks, here's quotations, air quotations here, because you see this a lot, that people who have not done enough research, in my view, who think that this is a Jewish conspiracy. And this is kind of me, by the way, the same response when you get to people when I say, I was baptized Catholic and I'm so happy about it. Oh, what about the Catholic conspiracy? They talk about Catholics and pedophilia. And we're going to talk about all of that today, because I'm just feeling tired of the cowardice of people who know what's happening and refuse to say it because they're fearful that they're going to be killed. And yes, I recognize the people that we're dealing with are psychopaths. Yes, I recognize people shot a president, a Catholic president, in broad daylight when he was with his wife. Okay, that's all very real. But what is the alternative to that? You stay quiet when we know the truth. We stay quiet and we allow these people to take over the world, which they are very close to doing. We pass this off to our children. Like Andrew said, it is going to take not just brave men, but it's also going to take brave women. And women, you know how to research, and I'm going to give all of you guys the tools to understand what is happening, okay? All of the faiths, Muslim, okay? If we're talking about Islam, we're talking about Judaism, we are talking about Christianity, have been infiltrated. All of them. There is not one of them that has not been infiltrated by a satanic cult that practices pedophilia, okay, listen to me, as a religious sacrament. I am going to tell you what the name of this satanic cult is so that you can now do your own research. Now, I will caution you that you cannot, with this particular name, trust Wikipedia as a source because it's hiding in plain sight, but they have virtually wiped his name from the internet, despite the fact that he has garnered so much power that I am going to show you that a Supreme Court justice who openly worshiped this religion, okay? So again, they've infiltrated religions. They have infiltrated all of them, okay? This ends when Jews and Muslims and Christians come together and root out the Satanists. His name was Jacob Frank, okay? That is what you are going to look up. His name was Jacob Frank. Now, his birth name was actually Jacob Ben Leibowitz, and he was born in modern Ukraine. You will find that a lot of these Frankists, because that's what they are, that's what they call themselves, are out of modern Ukraine. He was born in Podolia, and at that time, you would say that it was, you could also say Poland, Ukraine, the Polish Ukraine region is where the Frankist cult took off, okay?
So now what you're beginning to see, and what I was beginning to see when I'm looking at these clips, right? And I'm looking at her podcast, is the interfaith thing, Oh, we all, have been infiltrated by these Jewish, Frankists who are Satanists, have infiltrated Judaism, Christianity, which she is, a professing Catholic now, and Islam, okay? So now here it is that you're labeling these faiths, but when it came to the Hebrew Israelites, you could see she just trashed it. It's like, oh, well, I watched it, whatever, I'm not really, concerned with all that. I can't prove that. But, as far as us as faith and the Jewish people, all of the Jewish people were not, Satanists and all this type of stuff, right? So, as I watched her first video, the one where she's got the black on, I began to notice that, the reason that she was doing this was based off of, the stuff that happened with the Olympics, right? And matter of fact, let me show you a clip about what they done at the Olympics.
Candace Cameron Bure taking the Olympics to task, blasting this controversial opening ceremony moment on Instagram.
Trust me, it makes me mad, but I'm more sad because I'm sad for souls. I always risk it becoming a headline.
I'm a faithful woman. I believe that God's timing is God's timing.
The time is now for Candace, who rocks a rebel hat and reads Bible scriptures in her takedown.
But the one who sows to the Spirit will reap eternal life from the Spirit.
The actress, one of many, speaking out against Friday's ceremony in Paris, with this segment using drag performers in what many assume depicted Leonardo da Vinci's The Last Supper. TLC's Chili, Haley Duff, and Candace's daughter, Natasha, all praising her message in the comments.
So I first want to give you a couple of facts about what happened on that stage, because you might be wondering, who did they decide should play Jesus Christ in this drag show, mocking the Last Supper, saying, ha ha, Western world, Satan wins. He wins. Who did they say should play Satan? Were there tryouts? I don't know. I kind of want to know. Were there tryouts? Was it like curtain call? Did people line up in an auditorium and they say, give me your best Satan, but actually you're going to play Jesus Christ in drag, the Last Supper. Could there be anything more meaningful that we could disrupt? We're going to do this. We're going to do this while the whole world is watching, and we're going to get away with it because Satan, in their view, wins. He doesn't. That's the truth. He's not going to win. But this is an interesting concept. Who did they decide? Well, according to the Jewish Chronicle, it was a French DJ and a lesbian activist named Barbara Butch. Haha, so clever. Barbara Butch is a 43-year-old and very proud. Butch told Attitude magazine in 2023 about her background. You can see this, by the way, this headline here. It says, I'm fat, Jewish, queer, lesbian, and I'm really proud. And what we know about this individual's family is that members of her family were killed in the Holocaust. She says that she experienced anti-Semitism during childhood. She found acceptance, having dealt with anti-Semitism, through French Jewish scouts, which she described as a safe space with poor and rich kids where she learned to play the guitar and began to explore her sexuality. So her sexuality was a coping mechanism for her, okay?
Right, so you can see, based off of, the outrage that, Christianity had with, these homosexuals, you know what I'm saying? Portraying the Last Supper. Well, one of the women, the main woman that was whatever, she was Jewish too. So now what do we have here, right? You're saying that there was a Jewish man, Jacob Frank, who basically started Satanism, or, who was a Satanist, and basically infiltrated Christianity, Judaism, and Islam, right? So you're admitting that there was a Jewish man who infiltrated, and his faith who brought Satanism into all of the faiths, right? You're also admitting, that it was a Jewish person who basically mocked Christianity and Catholicism. Now, here's the key about Catholicism, right? Catholicism in itself is a mockery of the Hebrew faith of Christianity. Why do I say that? That Leonardo da Vinci painting, that's a substitution of Hebrews, right? Because Yahweh, Jesus is a Hebrew, right? And he painted that, and Da Vinci painted him as a Roman, right? So the bottom line is, you got that painting where all these people are mad. That's a depiction of Gentiles. That's not a depiction of Hebrews, right? That's why when Putin comes out and basically said, showing these black icons, he's trying to basically tell you, this is who the Hebrews were, right? These people over here are these Jewish Khazars, right? But you see, Candace acts like she don't know anything about this, even though in her own podcast, she knows about it. She knows about the Khazars, and now she knows about the Israelites. You know what I mean? About the Hebrew Israelites. Everybody knows about the Hebrew Israelites now, right? Because she said she watched the documentary, even though she says she didn't watch the documentary. So you do know that, the descendants of the transatlantic slave trade, and tracing it back to West Africa, when you get back to West Africa, there are people there that's still in West Africa who are of the Igbo tribes, right? The tribe of Ashanti too. You know what I'm saying? So you got people over there, even down in Congo, who right now, that's what the movie Hebrews the Negroes was about, is about these people from their oral tradition say that they were the true descendants of the ancient Israelites. So now, how is it as a Christian? You're supposed to be a Roman Catholic, who understands Christianity. And if that's the case, the first half of the book of the Bible is about the Israelites, right? And we know that Rome was the one that went down there in AD 70 and sacked Jerusalem. And that's the reason why the Israelites fled out of Israel. Now you got a people, and you even know, and you said from Abraham Pollock's writing, that they admit they're not the true converts, that they're not the true descendants of Israel, that they're converts, right? So now if you know all of these things, why is it that you casually dismiss the Hebrew Israelites, right? You see? So, again, we got a black who's basically dismissing Hebrew Israelite heritage, okay? Let me go and show y'all the word heritage, and let's go into some other things I want to show y'all. All right, so when we go to the dictionary and we pull up the word heritage, what is heritage? Property that is or may be inherited, an inheritance, right? They had stolen his grandfather's heritage, okay? What does family heritage mean, okay? Heritage is something that belongs to us by reason of birth. It is the history of a family. The Israelites are a history of the family of Israel, who was originally named Jacob, okay? God changed Jacob's name to Israel, all right? Where a family came from and all of the traditions, customs, and more that have been passed down from generation to generation make up a family's heritage, okay? Now I want to show you something first I want to show y'all what Candace Owens says about her own heritage, meaning because she admits that she comes from the Native Americans. Let me show y'all that.
It is quite sad when you consider that so many of us have no idea where we come from. Like, that to me was the bigger point, that there are so many people on this planet who have no idea where they come from. I'm one of them. I can't go back beyond a couple of generations. And the reason for that is because of war. It's because of slavery. It's because of large human trafficking efforts that take place. And typically it's because, well, how does it happen? Because you should know. We should be able to say exactly which tribe we all came from in the Bible, because you would just think your relative then tells their descendant and tells their descendant and tells their descendant forever. And we could just look at our family history and go, yeah, my great, all the way going back Bible, this was us. But we can't do that, because you have situations where, like, a bomb is dropped, and like one kid survives. It doesn't even have a memory of his father or his mother. You have people that were separated, as African Americans were when they were first brought over from Africa, Black Americans, separated from their families, being traded all across, quite literally no memory. I mean, I have part in my family. My grandfather's grandmother was fully Native American. I wish I could learn more about the Cherokee Native Americans, and her given name, because they made them change their names in North Carolina, was like Eliza, my grandfather's grandmother. I know nothing about her. And there's something about that that's spiritually very wrong.
All right, so y'all can see, this is from the book Light and Truth by R.B. Lewis, okay? And it's page 260, and it says, Mr. Adair is very full in this, that the Indians have but one God, the great Yahuwah, right? So this is what the Native Americans called the Most High, Yahuwah. So they knew this is Hebrew, right? The only thing different is the vowels, okay? You see the Y, the H, the Va, the W, and the H, right? YHWH, right? So you see, they knew the name of the Most High when these English people and colonials came over here, right? So anyway, whom they call the great, beneficent, supreme, and Holy Spirit, who dwells above the clouds and who dwells with good people and is the only object of worship. So different are they from all idolatrous heathens upon the earth. He assures that they hold his great divine spirit as the immediate head of their community, which opinion he conceives they must have derived from the ancient theocracy in Israel. He assures that the Indians are intoxicated with religious pride and call all other people the accursed people, and have time out of mind been accustomed to hold them in great contempt. Their ancestors, they boast to have been under the immediate government of Yahuwah, who was with them and directed them by his prophets, while the rest of the world were outlaws and strangers to the covenant of Yahuwah, right? All right, so when we look at page 261, and it reads, Dr. Boudinot informs of the Southern Indians of North America that they had a name for God, which signifies the great, the beloved, holy cause. And one of their names of God is Mingo Ishto Abba, great chief father. Abba, we know, is the Hebrew word for father. He speaks of a preacher's being among the Indians at the South before the American Revolution, and beginning to inform them that there is a God who created all things, upon which they indignantly replied, "Go about your business, you fool. Do not we know there is a God as well as you?" In their sacred dances, these authors assure us the Indians sing, "Hallelujah, Yahuwah, praise to Yah or Jehovah." When they return victorious from their wars, they sing Yahuwah, having been by tradition taught to ascribe the praise to God, right? The same author assures us that Indians make great use of the initials of the mysterious name of God, like the tetragrammaton of the ancient Hebrews, or the 4 radical letters which form the name of Jehovah, as the Indians pronounce thus Yehovah, right? That, like the ancient Hebrews, they are conscious of mentioning these together or at once, right? In page 266 of this book, okay, this is what I want y'all to see, right? Some of their customs in the tribe that they found that these people, that the Native Americans was practicing, okay? The second line. Their fast, holy days were regulated by sevens as to time, i.e. 7 sleeps, 7 moons, 7 years. They had a kind of box containing some kind of substance which was considered sacred and kept an entire secret from the common people, right? So this is basically like, they're basically saying like the Ark of the Covenant. Said box was borne by a number of men who were considered pure or holy. If I mistake not, such a box was kept by the Cherokees, right? Of which Candace said she was a Cherokee, right? And whenever they went to war with another tribe, they carried this box, okay? And such was its purity in their view that nothing would justify it being rested on the ground. A clean rock or scaffold or timber only was considered sufficiently pure for a resting place for this sacred coffer, okay? When we look at page 276 of this same book, this is what they say that the Aboriginal Indians of Amazonia look like. These natives, like all other Americans, you see that? Are of a good stature, have handsome features, long black hair, and copper complexions, right? Copper. Oh, matter of fact, here's the book, Light and Truth by R.B. Lewis, right? Picked it up off Amazon, all right? But copper complexion, a penny, copper, right? There's a dollar penny, right? Copper complexion. You see what I'm saying? Why are we sitting here playing these ignorant games? And my grandmother, my maternal grandmother, was 3/4 American Indian, Native American, right? My great grandfather, full-blooded Native American, you see? And my grandmother told me that he was darker than me, you see? But you're on Hollywood and all this type of stuff. But now, here's the deal. If the Native Americans was Ephraim, because remember when Jeroboam deceived them into making their own religion that was like what they were supposed to do with Moses. That's why they got kicked out for idolatry and doing all these things similar to the customs that they were supposed to do, but they wasn't doing it, right? So in that, they got kicked out. Now, if Ephraim was here and then Judah, the southern kingdom, Judah, Levi, and Benjamin was brought over here via the slave trade. That's why when the slaves got here, you know what I mean? They could communicate with Ephraim, you see, with the Aboriginal Native Americans. And I get a lot of people in there talking about against the Native Americans, and some saying we are the Native Americans and all that. And that's why a lot of us know that we have Native Americans in our family, right? Because we know. But they went and tried to change the Native Americans and say that they were fair skinned, right? But all of this was done. You got the Catholics involved on it. Matter of fact, y'all watch this video, The Signs of Israel, right on my channel. But you have the Catholics that was involved in this. You have the Arab slave traders, which Islam, they was called Mohammedans back then, but they were involved in this. And of course, you had the Ashkenazi Khazar, who had stolen our identity and claimed to be us, right? Who sold the southern kingdom that they got from West Africa, and then they put them you know what I'm saying, over here in the Americans via transatlantic slave trade. Okay. Now, let me go and show y'all some more things. All right. So here's an article, you know, that they always make these little slave monuments to keep us in reminder of slavery, right? Many in the U.S. coming to grips with slavery's legacy as obstacles being erected. Okay. What I see is a desperate hunger for places that tell the truth, says director of Center for the Study of Global Slavery, right? So in here, you'll see, and I'm just going to scroll down, where it says people visit the museum in large numbers, okay? 10 million people have come through the museum's doors since it opened in 2016 during a ceremony keynoted by former President Barack Obama, the U.S. first Black commander-in-chief. Unlike most Smithsonian museums, the African-American history and culture has since its opening remained a reservation-only institution, limiting the volume of people who can enter on any given day with lines often extend outside. But as many in the U.S. and beyond seek to understand the realities of the transatlantic slave trade, the fight for freedom, and the African American experience. So see, they keep putting that in our face, calling us African American or calling us blacks and all this type of stuff. Some are having their journey stymied at a foundational level, okay? Schools in many states are increasingly becoming a flashpoint in a growing ideological war to crack down on instructions on matters of race, right? See, but they make everything color. It ain't about color. It's about ethnicity. It's about your lineage. Why? Because of the heritage, the family of the Israelites. Who are the original Israelites? Who are the descendants of Israel to this day? Why? Because the Most High said he was going to regather Israel, right? Now, let me show you something else. All right, this is from ldhi.library.cofc.edu, okay? African laborers for a new empire, Iberian slavery in the Atlantic world, okay? So they tell you, right? And you see this, Pope Nicholas V and the Portuguese slave trade, all right? So you see the Pope and them was involved in the transatlantic slave trade. Now let's go down. All right, we pick it up right here. 15th century Iberian legal traditions regulated Christians' treatment of Jews. Now, Iberian Peninsula is with Spain and Portugal, okay? Right off the northwest coast of Africa, okay? Anyway, Christians' treatment of Jews, Muslims, and other Christians clearly delineating. For example, who was enslavable and who was not. In contrast, the juridical status of people who did not fit these categories was more ambiguous. Legal and philosophical arguments to address this issue began to evolve during the second half of the 15th century. Once Portuguese mariners began to return to Iberia with captives acquired in West Africa and West Central Africa, okay? So we know where the descendants of the transatlantic slave trade came from, right? Notably, the treatment of Black Gentiles. So you see, here's the switch. They know that these aren't Black Gentiles. They know that these were the Israelites, right? But see, they changed it from being the Jews. That's who got kicked out of Spain and got kicked out of Portugal. When Portugal kicked the Black Jews out, they put them on the west coast of Africa down in Sao Tome, right? They didn't put a bunch of white people down there, right? But they lying about it, okay? Was addressed in 1452 and 1455 when Pope Nicholas V issued a series of papal bulls that granted Portugal the right to enslave sub-Saharan Africans. So you see that. The Pope and Roman Catholicism had their hand all in the subjugating of these Black Gentiles that they're lying who were really the Hebrew Israelites. So y'all see, right? What they're doing now is stirring up everybody to identify with their religions, right? But these religions know there's one thing that undermines all of them. Who are the true children of Israel, right? Because Catholicism took the Hebrew faith of Christianity, infused it with paganism, and basically defiled Christianity. That's why so many people don't want to identify as Christians. I understand it. But Christianity is a Hebrew faith. Christ was an Israelite, right? So the bottom line is just because they take it and infuse it, I'm not giving it to them, right? That's our faith, right? We got in trouble for not receiving and keeping that. So I'm taking it back. Now, y'all can do whatever y'all want to do with it. But now at the same point in time, Judaism, which is supposed to be about the Israelites' faith of keeping the laws of Moses, right? So you got to do animal sacrifices and all that kind of stuff. Well, the bottom line is that's what these people who claiming to be Jews, who what the Bible tells us, Jews who say they are Jews and are not, but are the synagogue of Satan, right? So we know who the synagogue of Satan. So Candace, you don't got to come here telling us that those Jewish people, it was some of them that practice Satanism, right? We know you can't, everybody, we got to go by each man's faith. But we know that these Jewish people stole the identity. They're not the true children of Israel, right? So now when we start looking at Islam is over there and they took over the land over there. And the bottom line is that's why now they're over there fighting. But Islam and the true Muhammad, the dark-skinned Arabs, they've been infiltrated, and Japheth has come in and dwelled in their land, and them basically took over all their stuff. But those people are mixed, right? So this is what we're talking about. So, all these three faiths, when it comes down to who are the Israelites, and that's why all three faiths have been confederate, as Psalm 83 said, in them trying to enslave and remove the children of Israel far from their borders, right? So when Candace gets on here and acts like she don't, you know how to research, you research all this other stuff, but yet you want to claim to be a Catholic who enslaved your people, right? But yet you want to stand here and act like, oh, the Hebrew Israelite, that don't mean nothing. What Calvary happened, oh, that Hebrews to Negroes, it ain't got nothing to do with anything. No, you need to start studying to show yourself approved, because you don't even understand the very faith that you're talking about fighting for. And that's what they want you to do, is fight for a wrong faith that when the Most High don't answer y'all and all y'all get y'all's asses kicked, then the bottom line is y'all going to be looking for, well, why is this happening? And why is all this happening? And da-da-da. Because you're a bunch of liars. You don't even know the very faith that you claim to believe in, right? But that's what they're trying to do, right? I told you, there's another video on my page. Y'all look at this Iran, that religion would be used as this pretext for war. That's all this is about. And that's why you got now supposedly that Israel went and killed, Hamas's leader and all this type of stuff. This stuff is blowing up. But they got to move now. Why? Because the Israelites are waking up. They know their time is short, right? So it matters who are the children of Israel. Why? Because the children of Israel have a heritage. What is their heritage? What is the inheritance that was passed down? The land of Canaan. The Israelites have to go back to their homeland. And they tried to lie to us and deceive us by telling us a bunch of Gentiles, Khazars, were the Israelites. That's why they went down there, and that's why it's going to be a great big war over there. But the Most High ain't got nothing to do with that, because he ain't brought Israel back yet. When Israel comes back, Israel goes into the land with the king, Yahusha, Yahweh Shai, Jesus. Simple as that. Y'all have a blessed, wonderful day. Thanks for watching.
If you don't know where you came from, you know nothing. I mean, that's the reality. When he says that we parked aside wisdom and replaced it with something else, that is the truth. That is what comes from ancestry. There's a certain wisdom that comes from ancestry, which is why it becomes important to understand, well, if we don't know history, we know nothing. Everything is becoming an ever-present. What if there was a group of people who could quite literally, knowing every single name, trace, or maybe there's more than one group of people who can do this straight back to the Bible? That would be so impressive, and they would have so many answers, and they would truly have a leg up in life.
Hey, Daryl, just wanted to leave my testimony for you as a Gentile, believer in Yeshua HaMashiach, that I came to the understanding that the descendants of the transatlantic slave trade and probably some indigenous African Americans here that were here beforehand, I think might be some of the lost tribes of Israel who were here when Columbus got here, that understanding that you guys are the true Hebrew Israelites of the Bible, that people around the world understand as descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. That's when I realized that Jesus Christ was a black man, but I didn't put two and two together about his descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, who the entire Old Testament and the New Testament, and Jesus speaks about it in Luke 21:24, that there's going to be a time period where the Gentiles take over, and at the end times, the Hebrew Israelites are going to wake up, they're going to come to themselves, they're going to remember who they are, and they're going to start coming back to Yah and his commands, and when they do, that is when the second Exodus takes place and Jesus' return happens. So it was a big, so I accepted that Jesus was black based on the Bible itself.